Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
All right, welcome to the show. It is fall sports equinox time, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Oh my God, Eric, our schedules just got a lot more busy.
Yeah, but I'm enjoying it. Ball.
I know you are.
Oh, it's my favorite. Basketball's here.
Basketball's back, baby.
Between college basketball being back, the NBA ongoing, there will be at least some sort of basketball on TV between now and June. I'm in a good
Glorious.
spot. Yeah.
Glorious. And you know something? What a time for basketball here in Orlando too, because we're going to talk about UCF. We're going to start with talking about the UCF men's basketball team, which I think is flying under the radar. Picked fifth in the conference, which we'll talk about in a second. But boy, I really love this team. They're so deep. We're going to talk about the women's team who just put the hammer to Duquesne in the second half last night. And they got number 15 Tennessee coming to town on Friday. Huge game. My God, I'm really excited for the women's team. And you know what, Eric? Even the Orlando Magic are showing signs of life.
All right, let's not get carried. Let's not get carried.
Cole Anthony is I am more excited for Cole Anthony as a player with the Orlando Magic than I have been since the Dwight Howard, Hito Turkoglu days. I'm really excited to see Cole Anthony play. And my God, what a talent. Anyway, let's dive. So we're going to talk about that. Football's coming in segment 2, and we're going to have Rene Ingoglia also joining us to talk about the football game coming up with SMU. Big game for UCF. But we're starting with basketball. So if you've been on Black and Gold Banneret, you know what's been going on. We have we got our basketball previews up. Thanks as always to Derek Warden, who and to Mike O'Donnell, who put together this great 3-part basketball preview series, looking at the backcourt, the front court, and looking at just UCF's just season outlook right now. We got a column up from our latest edition, Kyle Nash, on the mystery of the missing respect for UCF men's basketball. Great column from him. But Eric, it's you and me, and we got some sound from Media Day here. But let's just start by talking about this. The outlook for UCF men's basketball, like we said, picked 5th in the conference in the preseason. But I feel like that's there's a lot more ceiling than floor there. This is a talented team that at the end of last year, I thought really performed well. They lost aside from the last game they lost against Memphis, where it was really tight in the American Athletic Conference tournament. This team really finished the regular season well. I think they won, what was it, 5 of the last 7 to close out the regular season, and the only 2 losses were by a combined 2 points. And despite all that happened last year with COVID, with the injuries, they were down to 6 guys in rotation at one point last year, and still, came that close to eking out a 500 conference record. This team had no business being in the neighborhood of 500 last year, and they were hot going into the end of the season, only to lose to the 3 seed Memphis and Penny Hardaway by 8 points in the conference championship semis. So in the second round, I should say. So you look at this team, Eric. What are you seeing right now? Is 5th accurate, or do you think that they could be higher than that this year?
I mean, they could be higher, but I think that's a fair placement because there are some interesting questions. Do the pieces fit? And I think that's what's going to be very fascinating as we watch this team. This team brings a lot of players back, a lot of experience back, but they also have some youth in the back end here. So I'm very curious how Johnny Dawkins kind of, puts the pieces together. How do they, fit when you consider the fact, for example, you obviously have Darius Perry back for an extra year to run the offense, but you also have Darius Johnson, who is one of the most highly recruited recruits that UCF's ever had at the guard position, which, by the way, that's the second year in a row that Johnny Dawkins has brought in a, big-time guard. I mean, Isaiah Adams last year, Darius Johnson. So how does that fit, for example?
Is Isaiah a guard? We had this debate on Twitter.
Well, he could be a forward guard. He's a player. Yeah. We'll hear from Isaiah Adams later on. But, I think that's the thing I'm interested in. I mean, they have talent across the board, but do they fit? Do they fit overall? I think will be fascinating. C.J. Walker obviously returns. That's huge. He's a big force inside, but they also got a transfer from UNLV who's already a captain in Jong. So,
yeah,
who's a big time front court. So, for example, like, does Mbake and Walker fit together on the court at the same time? Will Johnny go big? Will Johnny mix it up, go small? We could see a lot of different lineups, especially early in the season as they kind of sort all that out.
Well, that's the part that I like about this team is that there is a lot of diversity that you can play. If you want to go match up with teams that go small, you can go small. If you want to match up with teams, if you want to go big, you can finally go big, right? And but like you said, having that depth there, I mean, UCF was particularly hurt by the lack of depth at the point guard position last year because remember, Darius started the season getting hurt, and he finally came on toward the end of the season when he played himself into shape. But I feel like we never really saw him at 100%. And then Tony Johnson, broke his foot in the layup line at halftime of the opener, and so all of a sudden, in the early part of the season, they ended up digging themselves a hole because Dre Fuller, God bless him, was playing point guard, and that's not what Dre does, but it finally seemed, it did come together at the end of the season last year. So, all right, we got a whole bunch of bites that we want to get here from Media Day, Eric. And I know that, but you talked about the importance of Darius Johnson, and Johnny Dawkins was talking to the media about about Darius being one of these highly recruited newcomers, which I think is going to be important to figure out. Let's hear from Johnny about Darius Johnson, what he can expect from him in the future.
Darius has been terrific. He still has a learning curve like all young players, but a terrific leader, a really tenacious competitor. Kind of reminds me of BJ Taylor, to be quite frank. Very similar to BJ in coming in. Just can score the basketball, but knows how to make the players around him better. He has a real good balance to his game, so I've really enjoyed coaching him and watching him grow.
So that was Johnny Dawkins talking about Darius Johnson.
It's a little BJ Taylor comparison. I like that.
Do you know how much I love that? Oh my God. I'm excited to see what he can do because now you have three bona fide point guards.
Right. But that's the example that I'm saying. Like, how will the minutes be distributed will be fascinating because I do want to see Darius on the court, but will there be minutes there? And I think that's going to be fascinating with Perry and then Tony Johnson coming back. How does Johnny fit all these guys in? Because I know every coach says, hey, I want to play 11, 12 guys. But in reality, eventually you get into a tighter rotation, probably 8 guys. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. But I mean, Darius is somebody that we've heard about for a couple of years. So I'm excited to have him on board. And it shows that Coach Dawkins can recruit.
Right. And the other thing is like the injury factor too. Like we don't know how good Tony's going to be coming back. Right. I mean, we don't know if he's going to be 100%. God forbid something happens to him or Darius, something you're going to need, or Darius Perry, you're going to need Darius Johnson to step in there. And I do think like as a freshman, you also want to, kind of build his confidence. I think if you end up throwing him out there too much, you're going to end up, the freshman mistakes can add up. Right. And then you're trying to untangle some of that. But I think having him in there, the more important part is about having those three guys at the point. It's not so much what we're going to see in the games, right? It's what we're not going to see. in the practices.
When you have when you have an experienced guy like Perry, that you don't have to, you could kind of take it slow with him, and he's going to learn from that standpoint. So I think that's very valuable. But I think the most important thing for the point guard position, all right, and I think this is something that Darius has to do, and Michael Dono referenced this in the Black and Gold in the 3-part series, where this offense has to improve. And one of the things they have to improve is they sometimes fall in love with playing ISO basketball, one-on-one basketball. And as a result, you get some questionable shot selection. And that is actually something that Johnny Dawkins referenced, that one of the keys this season for his offense to get better is shot selection.
Offensively, we have to be a more specific team from the standpoint of shot selection. I want to see our team understand the value of shot selection. I want to see us take care of the ball a little more. So those are two things, the areas that we've really focused on this summer and this fall, just taking care of the basketball and making sure we're searching out really good shots.
All right, that was Coach Dawkins, and I agree with that. I think shot selection is key. Ball movement. When this offense has ball movement, they're going to be really good. If they don't, if they get stuck, the ball gets stuck and play iso ball, that's when they have some trouble. And I think that's imperative of the backcourt in the point guard position to make sure the ball is moving and don't, because at times Darius tried to do too much. He tries to do things on his own. And I think you've got enough talent around you where you don't need to be doing that.
Well, one of the interesting things I think that's about that is, remember, coming into last year, all right, you basically had no offseason. These guys couldn't get together. They couldn't develop the chemistry that they needed to have on the practice floor before they got out there. And when you have newcomers like, Darius came in as a transfer from Louisville, right? And then you have Isaiah coming in, who's not just trying to figure his way out through the team, but figure out how to be a college freshman, Mr. Basketball in the state of Florida, figure out how to be a college freshman in the midst of COVID. This is where we're going to start to see where, that's the difference between this year and last year. And I'm really excited to see, what Isaiah brings to the table in year 2, because it was a really encouraging freshman year from him last year. I mean, you look at the numbers, he finished, 4th on the team in scoring at 9.9 points per game, 34% from 3, 46% in total in 25 minutes a game. But there were some times when we saw some freshman mistakes from him, no?
We did, but that's typical. And you're right. And you mentioned they didn't have a summer. They didn't have an off season.
Yeah.
So the freshmen really were playing behind the 8 ball across the board in college basketball. I don't think it was an accident that a lot of teams that had freshmen struggled last season. But I think Isaiah Adams, the sky is the ceiling. And he's
the limit, you mean?
The sky's the limit. If I learn how to talk. One guy that knows how to talk, thankfully, is our very own Kyle Nash, who had a chance to talk to Isaiah Adams about what he's worked on this offseason and the high expectations this season.
Very tough and scrappy team as far as getting up. We picking up 94 feet, pressing full court. We just playing fast. We playing a lot faster than we did last year, and I feel like that's going to be where that's going to be our identity this year, because that's what coaches been emphasizing in practice as far as let's play fast, let's get the ball out fast. Even if somebody do score, get it out fast, push it back down, next play. And I just feel like this year it's just going to be very different, because once we keep going up and down, running back and forth, the next group of 5 are going to come in and do the same exact thing. So I've been telling them, 40 minutes, you're going to get the best of what UCF has, and it's going to be very hard. It's going to be fun to watch, for sure.
So what you're proving is that UCF Fast is not just a football saying, huh? UCF Fast is not just a football saying.
No, not at all. No, not at all. We fast, man. We're going to play fast this year, for sure.
Fair enough. So, and we've been talking a lot about what's the same between last year and this year. What's something that's different? I mean, other than Bakke being added to the roster and already becoming a captain, very impressive.
Yeah.
But what's something else that's different from last year to this year that you're going to see that and be like, this is going to help us succeed?
I feel like as a team, the vibe and just the energy that we have as a team in practice, and you'll see it in the games with just our energy and just being on the floor and just playing basketball. You just see on the court that it just feels like a different team than it was last year, because everybody's bought in to win it. Everybody's bought into making the extra play, making their teammate better, and that's what Coach Dawkins has emphasized this year again. And we've emphasized as a team, when we talk on our own, as far as let's do to make each other better. Let's make the one extra pass. So do this for our teammates so everybody can eat. That's the whole goal. Because once we win, everybody eats. And that's what everybody's been talking about. If we win, everybody eats.
Okay. So I've heard some other people talk about depth being a key element
of this
team as well.
Yeah, we have our team is very, we have a lot of depth on this team. It's just all the way down to the end of the bench. Anybody who can come in and produce, that's what we're here for. So, and we're just feeling good when whoever's starting or whoever's out there, knowing the next person that's coming in for you can go out there and produce something too. So, and it's going to be a struggle for other teams because once we come out or whoever comes out doing good, the next group going to come in doing the same exact thing. And it's still 40 minutes, just up and down, up and down. We just wearing them out and just playing UCF basketball as far as we want to play this year.
After I asked Coach at the press conference about Coach K and his swan song, you had actually posed some questions of Coach yourself at the press conference there. How do you think he fielded your question?
You said what?
How did he field your question? You do a good job fielding your question?
Yeah, I feel like he did pretty good, saying my question, saying I could be a pro, do what he did. And I feel like he's absolutely correct, absolutely correct. This year he's been telling me that just a different feeling this year that you can get and just toning out and expanding my game and making it more complete. And I feel like that'll help me a lot as far as we transition and not even worried about the pro level right now, but just this year and focusing on, because I know after this, it could be talks about that, but still just focusing on just winning games and being the best person I can be and help this team win basketball games.
All right, that was Isaiah Adams with Kyle Nash, a portion of that interview. If you want to watch, by the way, the entire interview of Kyle with Isaiah as well as other UCF players, subscribe to our YouTube page. Make sure you do that and give us a thumbs up on that. Look, Adams I think is the most popular player on this team. I think if you did a poll with the fans, I think people are excited. I think if you heard Adams' tone there, it's no secret what his goal is. His goal is to get to the next level. And it's about, reaching consistency like you mentioned. And I really do think he has a shot to be at the next level. And so does Coach Dawkins. So, in fact, Coach Dawkins talked about what is the keys for Isaiah Adams. And look, this is something that's going to benefit everybody, is Isaiah Adams improving his game.
I think Isaiah Adams has a chance to be a terrific player. I mean, the sky's the limit with who he can be. His work ethic is second to none. I love the way he practices and competes. As I said earlier, no one goes in when it's time to compete, goes any harder than Isaiah does. He gives you everything he has on the floor, and that's why he's going to be a terrific player here and beyond. As he continues to develop, continues to round out his game, like I said before, I think the sky's the limit for where he can play at. I think he can be great on our level. I think he's a next level player. It's just a function of him just going through the process, continuing to stay hungry and continuing to work.
Johnny's right. And I'll tell you one thing that really encouraged me was you look at the last 5 games, Isaiah played, remember he got shut out against Cincinnati in 9 minutes, no points. And before that, he had 2 points in 20 minutes against Tulane. He kind of hit a slump sort of at the mid-February. And, I don't know what happened, but it was, again, he had that breakout game against Tulane where he scored 26 points in 32 minutes on 10 of 11 from the field. And that started a run. His last 5 games, he played 30 minutes a game and he had double digits in each of them only once. He had double digits in each of them except for once when he had a rough night against East Carolina. But what we saw in that last 5 games against Tulane, Tulsa, the first ECU game, and then that Memphis game, he had 13 points on 6 of 12. That's like, okay, that's the preview for Isaiah, right?
I do. And I think one of the keys for this team to have success is, can Isaiah kind of be that guy where, hey, if you need a basket down the stretch, go to, because I think he's the most gifted offensive player on the roster, at least as of what we've seen to this point. And I think that's going to be a key. You mentioned UCF picked 5th in the conference. You look at the teams ahead of them. Houston, Marcus Sasser is a guy that's their go-to guy at Houston. Memphis, Jalen Duran, who everybody's going to get to know is the best freshman arguably in the country, probably the best player in the American. He's a go-to guy for them. Wichita State, Tyson Etienne, the reigning American Conference Player of the Year, go-to guy. Even SMU, Kendrick Davis, go-to guy. UCF, I don't think, had a go-to guy. Brandon Mahan would get hot, but he also would get get cold. Perry would take some shots. I think Isaiah has the potential to be that guy, because I think he's the most gifted offensive player they have on that roster. And if he takes it to that next step, that's what could be the difference between this team maybe being an NIT team and being an NCAA tournament team.
Speaking of gifted players who are on the verge of taking the next step, we got to talk about CJ Walker, who I think is one of my favorite players to watch. Was one of my favorite players to just watch play basketball last year. I sometimes, up in the, we did the PA up by the audio booth because of COVID, and just watching him run the floor, rebound, play defense was just totally remarkable. And he didn't have that many good offensive games. He had, I'm looking at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He only had 5 games last year where he scored in double figures. His season high was 18 on 7 and 12 against USF in 36 minutes. Great game for 18 points and 9 rebounds. But I feel like CJ is on the verge of being a really great, two-way player. And, we saw defense travels, right? It's easy to see how good he is on defense, but when he puts it together on offense, oh my God, that could be a real dangerous player to see.
It is, but what he brings to his strength and what's going to get him to the next level is his defense around the rim, his energy, and his athletic ability. The offense will come, and I think the guards have to help him and create for him, set up. So I'd like to see some pick and rolls for him, and I think he's got to improve finishing around the rim. But Johnny Dawkins talked about, for him, he's a benefit to this team. There's no reason why he can't be one of the top defensive players in the American Conference.
I expect to see CJ understand who he is as a player. I mean, people, kind of typecast, athletes, and they want him to be some players that maybe they aren't. I mean, what he is he's an energy guy who plays hard, he defends, he rebounds, he can make an open shot, and that's highly valued. It's highly valued on our level, and it's highly valued on the next level. And if he can just go out there and do those things, play with the same energy and effort he's been playing with all preseason, continue to knock down open shots when he has those opportunities, he's one of the best defensive players. He should be up for a defensive player of the year in our conference type of award. That's the type of player he should be. And if he does those things, we're better. I think it serves who he is as a player, because that's playing to his strengths. And when he does that, I think, it just everyone wins in that situation.
That was Coach Dawkins there on CJ Walker. And really a great point. The more CJ, brings to the table, the more it helps UCF win, the more it helps him, the more it helps his draft prospect. And Coach Dawkins is right. Yeah, people are going to focus on the offense, but the energy, the defense that he brings, that's going to get him to the next level. He reminds me a lot of Montrezl Harrell, who used to be at Louisville, has been in the NBA now. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that's going to be on bring energy, defense, can guard multiple positions. He's more athletic from that standpoint. That's his game. And what's interesting to me is he's going to have other guys around him now protecting the rim, whereas last year he was kind of the line of defense. Remember when he get in foul trouble? UCF would struggle defensively, in the paint. Now he's got some help coming from Las Vegas.
Yep, Shek Bakajan, who came over to UCF as a redshirt transfer from UNLV, originally from Dakar, Senegal. This guy is for real. 6'11", 235. He was the big get, I thought, in the transfer portal. Last year at UNLV, started all 27 games for the Rebels, 8.9 points, 7.4 boards, 6th in the Mountain West in rebounding. It was 4th in the conference with in blocks, and he shot 60% from the field. This guy, I think, is going to be the real the sort of the catalyst, I think, for not just offensively and defensively, because, like you said, defensively, CJ got caught a lot of times in foul trouble because he was the only rim protector there was. You put Zhang back there, okay, he's the rim protector, and then CJ can guard that weak side, maybe get a couple weak side blocks here and there. But I think that this team is, if injuries aside, with Zhang in there and with CJ, this is going to be a very difficult team to score on in the interior if all goes well, right?
Absolutely, and that's the blueprint of a Johnny Dawkins team. It's defense, hard work, and I think Young will fit that, and he's already made an impression. He's a captain on this team. That's one of the things that Johnny Dawkins talked about, as well as what John brings to the table?
Another player that brings in a lot of energy and effort. I think that's one of his best things that he does for our team. He just plays so hard. He makes a lot of plays with his energy, and we need that. We want a team that's, we look at ourselves as a blue-collar team. That means we're going to put our hard hat on, and every day we're going to work. And he exemplifies that type of mindset. He comes in every day, he puts his hat on, and we're going to go hard. And so he sets an amazing tone. For Bake, he's been voted one of our captains, and he's only been here one summer right now and a little bit of a fall. He's already been voted one of our captains of our team. So that says a lot about who he is as a human being, a lot about his work ethic, and definitely happy that he decided to come and play for us.
Well, there's Coach Dawkins. So, look, I think that's huge. I think defensively inside, I'm really curious if CJ and John can, play together. How's that go?
I think they're going to fit in really nicely because they're two different kinds of shot blockers. And I think Mike alluded to this in the preview that he did with Derek, was that, it's like we're saying that, you can have that active shot blocker and then the defender. It's really the perfect relationship between a true center and a true power forward.
Yeah.
Even though, we're not really, we're heading toward more positionless basketball. I love the fact that Jean can be the rim protector. Now, foul trouble is always a thing, but again, if one of your guys gets in foul trouble, at least now this year you have that kind of depth where you don't have to really worry about it.
You've got it right because you have a Jamil Reynolds, as well inside. Right. So you're right.
And Jamil was really good last year, especially toward the end.
And that's what's so fascinating. You got this experience. You still got some youth. It's going to be interesting. Don't be surprised and don't be alarmed if Coach Dawkins, and this is going to apply to the women's side too when we get to them, if you see some different lineups, especially early in the season, it might be based on who your opponent is and what they bring to the table. Yeah, and you might see some guys get some some minutes in one game, but maybe not as much in other games. It's going to be interesting to see the experiment here as this team kind of grows early on in the season. But look, there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of excitement. Brandon Mayhem returns as well. Hopefully he could play more like he did the first half of that season. The Florida State game comes to mind. Cincinnati. He had some struggles there. I think he's more, if he could be your number 2 option, like it goes back to Isaiah Adams. If Isaiah could develop to being that number 1 option, and then you got now Mayhem as your 2 option offensively, I think this team will improve offensively. And if they I think they're going to be fine defensively. They're going to be fine defensively. If they're going to be improve offensively and shot selection, as Coach Dawkins has mentioned, and they're supposedly going to play more up-tempo to try to get easier baskets. We'll see. I think that's going to help a long way because they're going to need that because they're going to play a very difficult schedule, especially in the non-conference, which I would argue is the most difficult non-conference schedule in the history of this program.
Yeah, this is good stuff. We talked about the conference salt to begin with, and not just the home games like against Oklahoma and Michigan, but also the road and neutral games too, right? I mean, we got Miami, we got Florida State coming in into that non-conference schedule, not coming into town. Now UCF plays Miami down in Coral Gables on Saturday, but it's the second game of the year. Remember, they're opening tonight, Wednesday night, if you're listening to this, against Robert Morris. Now, before you scoff at Robert Morris, the game's on ESPN Plus tonight at 7 p.m. or Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Before you scoff at Robert Morris and look at what they did last year, they didn't have a very good last year. But again, I think this is one of the things where you got to throw COVID out. This and Mike alluded to this again last in the preview with Derek. This is a good Robert Morris team from 2019-2020. They won 20 games. They went 13-5 in the Horizon League. This is a very competitive team. And if they're going to be back to the extent that we think that they're going to be back, this is going to be tough. This is going to be a tough opener on the home floor.
Well, I mean, a lot of these games are going to be tough. I mean, that's the bottom line. They go to Auburn later in the season. It's a really difficult schedule. And that's why, the expectations, because I know that's been a really popular topic this week on social media across UCF Sports, which we'll get into.
Started.
But I have a feeling that'll come up in the Olympic segment. But here's the thing that we got to keep in mind. This is not a program that is a traditional brand in basketball. You look at the American, a lot of the experts have a 2 to 3 bid league. You look at Houston, for example, they're the favorites, according to the coaches, even though they lost a lot of personnel from their Final Four team, but they do return Marcus Sasser. Kyler Edwards is a newcomer from Texas Tech that I think a lot of people have high expectations. I think Memphis The coaches have basically voted them as the best roster in this league. And I agree. The question is, can Penny Hardaway get them over the hump? They won the NIT last year. There are going to be a lot of people's, kind of flavor to pick to go to the Sweet 16. I think those are your two top teams. Can the league get a third team in? Well, if you're UCF, to do that, not only you got to win some of your non-conference games on the resume, but you got to deal with Wichita State, who you have not beaten since they've arrived in conference. They still have Tyson Etienne, but they only returned 3 starters. SMU is the sleeper team I like. They made the NIT. I think Kendrick Davis is the best guard in the league, point guard, 19.7 assists. Then you got teams like Tulsa, for example, Frank Haith. How about this stat? Tulsa has finished higher than their preseason ranking in the conference in 7 of the 8 seasons in the American. They always seem to overachieve. It's very weird. Temple, they returned their top 4 scorers. Khalif Battle, who's giving UCF fits, is back. USF, Brian Gregory, a lot of pressure on him. I think he's on the hot seat. They got 10 newcomers. Caleb Murphy, a lot of issues off the court with his staff and racism and things like that. So not a really good situation there. I think he's on the hot seat. I think Jim Dooley in East Carolina is on the hot seat. They returned 4 starters. Jalen Gardner is not one of them. He has transferred to Virginia. So he's no longer at ECU. And then Tulane returns 3 starters, including Jalen Ford. My point is, for this team to make the tournament, they're probably going to have to finish in that 3 to 4 range because, and try to, and they're going to have to probably beat Wichita State, at least split, beat them at some point. They only play SMU once this year. They got to play Memphis, unfortunately. They got to play Houston. Tough sledding there. So I'm saying, my point is, I don't think it's a lock to make the tournament, but I also don't think it's a disappointment if they missed a tournament. Obviously, they're going to be disappointed. They feel they're an NCAA tournament team. But I think top 5 is fair for this team. That's the goal. If you make it top 5, you get some non-conference wins, you do well in conference, you can make the tournament. This will change. The good news about the Big 12, when you get there in a couple of years, you got more room for error. You could finish 6th or 7th in the Big 12 and make the tournament. That's not the case in the American.
Especially with the way that basketball league is shaping up.
Absolutely.
Even without Texas and Oklahoma, man, the Big 12 is going to be an absolute murderer's row when we get there.
It's going to be it's been the number 1 conference in the sport, probably 3 of the last 4 years based on RPI and net. Obviously, the Big Ten will have something to say about that, but it's a strong league. So my point is, for this team, the margin for the NCAA tournament is a little small because, again, I think the American is probably at best a 3-bid league. At the best, the most they've ever had is 4, I believe. So that's the goal. Hopefully they can make a postseason. I think, to me, that's the expectation. A postseason team, whether it be NCAA or NIT. To me, that's the expectation. I have to include the NIT because I don't think if this team makes the NIT, I don't think that's a disappointment. I know some in our audience will disagree with that, but I think this team, this program, this is not a, quote, basketball brand. Not yet.
Well, we're approaching it, and this year could be a really big step in the right direction to, in preparation for that move to the Big 12 and making sure that happens. You know what else we're really excited about actually seeing this year, Eric, as we transition over to women's basketball? That women's basketball team started their season last night, Tuesday night, against Duquesne, home opener. So much good news coming out of that game. First of all, it was a tight game in the first half, and we were like, what is going on? It was 24-22 UCF at halftime. And then they go on a 44-17 run in the second half, pulled it together, and showed us that the defense is back. It's based on last year. Remember last year, they were one of the few teams, I believe, in NCAA history at the end of the regular season to hold their opponents for an entire season under 50 points a game. They were one of the best scoring defenses, they were number 1 in the country. They're one of the best scoring defenses in history, in the history of women's college basketball last year. And to do what they did in the second half against Duquesne, holding them to 28% from the field, was really outstanding. And the other thing that I thought was really just wonderful to see, Diamond Battles out there. Remember the last time we saw her on the floor? She was being carried off the floor in the NCAA tournament game, that first rounder against Northwestern, with what looked like an absolutely frightening knee injury. What does she do in her first game back? Not only is she playing, she dominates the game. 32 minutes, 16 points. And and leads the way for UCF again that in a 68-39 victory over Duquesne. UCF also got some contributions from Anna Burney, who listen, I know that Coach Abe is not all in on outside shooting, but UCF hit 8 threes, 4 of them from Diamond and 4 of them for Anna, who got the start. She was 4 of 10 from 3-point range. Destiny Thomas got the start, had 10 rebounds for UCF. Masni Kava came off the bench, played 28 minutes and got and picked up 9 rebounds, 11 points. This is a really good. This is exactly how you want to open the season, right?
Yeah, and I think the big stat there, you mentioned Diamond Battles, the big stat was she was 4 for 6 on the 3-point line. She's a much better perimeter shooter now. That's what she's been working on. Sometimes when you have an injury like she did, and that that she's been, the only thing you could do is work on your shooting. You can't move around too much. So I think that might have benefited her from that standpoint. And they have to improve shooting the ball. They're going to be great defensively. They're going to be good. They're deeper now. So as a result, they're going to press more. They're going to use that to their advantage. They're big inside. However, they're going to double their bigs. So how do you keep them honest? You got to hit some shots in the perimeter. You look at last year, Alicia Lewis was really the only threat from the perimeter. She's back. She had 8 assists, by the way, in 27 minutes off the bench.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why you saw Anna Burney start is to provide some shooting. She went 4 for 10 from the 3-point line, 6 of 12 overall for 16 points. Now, don't fall in love with this lineup. Again, just like I mentioned with the men, don't be surprised if Coach Abe tweaks the lineup and depending on the matchups on that given day. Right. But I think you have an idea. I think this team, they know they're going to be good defensively. Normally Coach Abe has got to fit in, put the system in, and they got to learn the defensive schemes and all that. This team already knows it inside out. Now the question is to take that next step, to win the conference championship, to advance in the NCAA tournament, is to improve on the offensive end, and in particular, the perimeter game. If you look at, for example, South Florida is the team they're going to have to get through. The American is a 2-team league, basically, in my view, USF, UCF. Why did USF win the championship game? Because a Sydney Harvey got hot from the 3. So now how do you respond with that? Well, UCF had a drought in that game, and they dug themselves a hole. You want to avoid droughts, because sometimes players are going to get hot. Northwestern, the NCAA tournament game, they had a player that went to the WNBA. She got hot. So you're not going to be able to shut everybody down, especially when you get to the elite teams. So you have to score at some point to match that. And I think the shooting of Battles and Burney and Lewis, and even Tate took 5 threes, didn't make one. We'll see. But the fact he's taking threes, I actually think that's a good thing. They're being aggressive offensively.
Opens up the floor. And
it opens up the floor. And I think this group knows to take that next step to win that elusive conference championship, which is the goal, and not only make it back to the NCAA, but win that elusive first ever NCAA tournament game in program history. They got to improve offensively, especially in the perimeter game. And I think that was a positive sign. But we're going to learn a lot more on Friday against number 15 Tennessee. That's what we're going to get a true test.
Yeah, the Lady Vols are coming in. First time ever that Tennessee has and UCF have met. You talk about brand programs. All right. Doesn't get any more brand program than Tennessee. First tip off on ESPN Plus is at 6 on Friday. So, and then by the way, no rest for the weary for UCF. Right after that, they got to go to Virginia, but focus on Tennessee now. Coach Abe talked about this. This is a veteran team, 8 players who are seniors or 5th years. Okay. They got a lot of chemistry working together. So now she's going to put them to the test with this schedule. And that's exactly what she spoke about here. Here's Coach Abe talking about the tough schedule and as part of that tough schedule, playing Tennessee on Friday.
The reason we scheduled a lot of these different games was, number one, we couldn't get anybody to play us. That was the first thing. But number two, we wanted to get ready for our conference, because if we prepare ourselves at the beginning, then when we go into our conference, I feel like we're going to be way more prepared, to play some of these bigger games that we're playing. And we have a lot of really good teams coming in. It just happens that Tennessee's the next game, and then we have Virginia, and then so it was really a struggle to get teams just to come in and play us. So we had to, make sure that we could get some of these returns, because Duquesne was 3 years ago. They were supposed to return for COVID, but they pushed it back. So now all these returns, I don't even know if you guys even understand how it kind of works, but the COVID thing really messed up all of our schedules in the country. So now we got some of the returns finally coming back, and then some new series coming in. So Tennessee is a new series. They said they would come here first because they had a hard time scheduling, and so we'll go back there the next year. So I'm excited just for the challenge, and I think for our players to play. You're talking about Tennessee, to play Tennessee and play Virginia and play USC, and we have a lot of really good competition coming in. Play Arkansas. We got a lot of really good teams. But I played at Georgia. I don't know if you know that, and so I played against, and was one of the icons, idols. She recruited me, the whole thing. So I always say I played for Vivian Stringer too at Iowa, but my mom is not in the house anymore, and Pat's not in the house anymore. So it's a completely different program, right? But that Tennessee name, for women's basketball, that's still gonna, be something really historic for me, because I had the opportunity to actually play in that facility every single year, and especially looking down and seeing her was really amazing.
Eric, I know you're excited to see the Lady Vols in town.
It is. I think it's arguably the biggest non-conference home game in UCF basketball history. To get a brand like Tennessee, second-year head coach Kelly Harper won a national title at Tennessee. I mean, you heard Abe talk about she played against Tennessee when she was a player at Georgia, Coach Abe. So, look, it's a great test, and it's awesome to see them on the court. Should be a great environment, and I think we'll learn a lot about this team, and they'll be good. They're going to play a tough non-conference schedule, as Coach Abe alluded to it. They should. A veteran team. They'll be battle-tested, and they'll get them ready to go for the conference. And then once we get to conference, it's going to be that collision, UCF and USF. They're going to be the two heavyweights, that rivalry. And then we'll see if somebody else can maybe try to crash the party like a Tulane. But for now, it's UCF, and everybody else in the league.
Yeah. All right. So Friday at 6 is going to be this game against Tennessee. It's styles make fights, right, Eric? And I know, obviously this non-conference, we're talking about how exciting this is. Virginia, Southern Cal, Arkansas, Seton Hall, Iowa on the slate before we get started with this conference schedule. But I just, again, man, this is just shaping up to be a collision course between UCF and USF, and styles make fights. These two teams play dramatically different. They couldn't be more polar opposites of each other in terms of style of play. And oh boy, I'm salivating thinking.
Well, and the players are, they remember they remember it was a half game difference, a very controversial thing that meant USF was.
You are very much on the record about how you were not thrilled about how the
I think it was
that last.
I think
year
it was
with
nonsense.
That COVID forfeiture, yeah.
It should have been a share. And I think the players have a chip on their shoulder. Masani Kaba. Destiny Thomas, by the way, 24 minutes, 10 boards. That's the thing. This team has got depth inside as well. Like I said, this team is an NCAA tournament team, but in the American, this league is probably a two-bid league. So you don't want to, you got to take care of business. But this team should be in the tournament, and high expectations for this program and for Coach Abe. And I think this team is motivated. I think they have some unfinished business. The way the conference tournament, the deal played out. And the what if in the NCAA tournament game, with Diamond going down, early in that game, they'll always wonder what if. And I think they don't
the complexion of the game.
Change it. So I think that's why all these players came back, right? That's why they came back, because they want to be that, they want to win that conference championship. They want to make the tournament, and they want to win a game. Something that this program's never done is win an NCAA tournament game. So it's a very exciting time for this program, and we'll see how this unfolds.
All right. Well, one way it unfolds the right way is winning that opener, and UCF definitely did against Duquesne. Friday at 6, UCF against Tennessee at the arena. You'll want to be there for that one. All right, stick around. When we come back, we'll talk UCF football, which somehow got bumped down to the second segment. Rene Ingoglia is going to join us. Analyst for ESPN, local guy. He's kind of a good luck charm for us, to be honest with you, Eric. He's going to join us to preview UCF against SMU in Dallas on Saturday. Big game for UCF. What can the Knights do against this struggling SMU team that was ranked not all that long ago? Could this be the signature win for Gus Malzahn in his first season at UCF? We'll talk about that and more with Rene when we come back. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you, and joining us now, analyst for ESPN. His day job is he works for the Orlando Police Department, and yet he finds time on the weekends, aside from having, wife and kids and all that kind of stuff, to also do football for ESPN. Rene Ingoglia joining us once again here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Rene, what is up, my man? How are you?
Thanks for having me. And I got to say, because people are going to call and say you guys are wrong, I actually retired from the Orlando Police Department.
That's right.
I got my 20 plus years in. Great profession, but it was time to move on to broadcasting full time. So we'll hang it up. We'll leave it at that.
Hey, congratulations on your retirement, though, man. That's a well done. 20 years is a long time, brother.
Well, and you brought it up. It was like, I used to call it like controlled chaos. And I was a detective, so I would work a full caseload, and then I would mix in my, game prep, and I would fly to my games on Thursday. And I used to have some detectives that would help me, do some stuff. And it was just controlled chaos, trying to get my interviews and my coaches' calls in during the week. But that is all behind us because I am retired. Yes, I'm old, but it's I'm into the next phase of my life.
Throttle it back with that nice pension, right? Yes, indeed. That's how it works.
I'm not going to complain.
All right, let's talk a little football, man. UCF and SMU. 3 games left for UCF. And they're 3 big ones. This is since Boise State, this is the best opponent that UCF has played. Knights are coming off a 3-game winning streak against conference opponents after that disaster up in Cincinnati. Yeah. But it still looks like it's, as of right now, it's going to be Mikey Keene running the show here. So you've obviously followed both these teams throughout the season. You've been intimately involved in not just looking at UCF locally, but also SMU and following them. This game's on ESPNU, by the way. The outlook on the matchup from what you look at right now for UCF against SMU in Dallas, in particular with regard to UCF's offense facing up against SMU's defense. And SMU's kind of struggling right now, man. They've lost 2 in a row.
They have. So there's a lot of dynamics going on here. So let me just start with, I'm sure UCF fans, I know UCF fans had higher expectations for this season, but I'll tell you this, as I'm looking for my view, and I don't have a dog in the fight. I just happen to live in Orlando. I think Gus Malzahn's done a great job. I really do. I mean, with the amount of injuries this program has sustained, especially your quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, and, Mikey Keene, I don't care how good of a quarterback you are, how high of a prospect you are, what your ceiling is. You're still a freshman. There's a ton of learning to do. And he will get better with each and every rep, each and every game. And that's just a learning curve. And so the crazy thing, I think, if you're a UCF fan, you're looking at the scores the last couple of weeks. I mean, besides Temple, you laid it on them, but offense, everyone was like, okay, offense is going to be the thing. Right. And I, earlier on when I was did the media days for the American Athletic Conference, I was worried about UCF's defense. And I think a lot of people were. And the last couple of weeks, they've really showed up, which I think is great. I think they're going to get Jean Baptiste back this week, right? If I'm not mistaken. So good there. And so they've been playing well. So that's a good sign. I will say this, and you guys know this, Memphis, they didn't get Seth Hennigan, right? They got a quarterback, which was his first start. So, but they did what they needed to do. Temple, I haven't really seen that much of Temple. And Tulane, although
neither is Temple, to be honest with you.
Correct. And you look at Tulane's record, just a train wreck. And it's just, that one surprises me because I think there's better talent on that team. But you guys know when it starts snowballing the wrong way, you just sometimes can't stop it. But you know what? UCF did what they needed to do, and they got the win. And now that brings us to SMU, which I had them last week against Memphis. They were favorites in that game, and just offensively couldn't do anything. And it was a really weird game because the first possession, they went right down the field. They were in the red zone, and Tanner Mordecai just drops the ball, their quarterback. And Memphis gets the takeaway. They recover it, and he just he just wasn't the same. And so if I'm UCF, UCF fan, it actually makes me nervous, right? Because, they lose the real big one to Houston, right? And of course it's the kickoff return. They don't kick away from him and he brings it back. And so it's like, okay, let's get the momentum against Memphis because SMU still controlled their own destiny, right? Because they play Cincinnati coming up and they could still get to the championship. And then they just go to SMU and kind of really lay an egg. But it's a very, very potent offense, an offense that was averaging over 40 points a game. They're probably still right around there. Danny Gray, Rashee Rice, Reggie Robertson, their three top receivers are dynamic. And Mordecai is a really good quarterback. I believe he's the leading passer in the American. So They can do it now. They didn't run the ball particularly well either. And the one thing they didn't do the last couple of weeks, which were losses, was protect Mordecai. Gave up a lot of sacks the last two games as opposed to the 7-0 start. So that's something where I think UCF's going to get after it. I think Big Cat Bryant could have himself a game. And that's something I think they have to do. And even if you can't sack Mordecai, a quarterback like him, you got to move him off his spot. You have to make him uncomfortable in the pocket. If not, he can throw the ball. Now, I read a report from a Dallas newspaper, and I'm not sure which one it was, and you guys probably did too, and Eric probably did, that Preston Stone there, I believe he was a 4-star quarterback when I did the American Conference Media Days. People were raving about him saying, I cannot believe this kid went to SMU. The reports I read, and I'll talk to Sonny Dykes later this week, is that Preston Stone's going to play, whether that's packages put together for him. That's pretty telling, right? When you have the leading passer in the American. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with guys. Let's look at the magic number, right? There's 3 games left in the regular season and then a bowl game. He has, if my records are correct, and I'm looking at him, Preston Stone has played in 1 game. Of course, you can play in 4 and not lose any eligibility. So that's why I think you'll see a Preston Stone and probably some other true freshmen. And I'll ask Gus Malzahn that, and you'll probably see it on the UCF side too. I'm assuming you'll probably see some true freshmen that haven't played at all this year, kind of maybe get a peek here and there, maybe in special teams, maybe in some other areas. But and the other 100,000-pound elephant in the room is Sonny Dykes has not re-signed his new contract, which apparently has been on the table for 6 or 7 days from SMU. And he did tell us when we talked to him last week that, yes, SMU has offered him a new contract. He said he hates dealing with that stuff during the season. He would rather wait to the end of the season. But
that's what you have an agent for, Sonny.
Well,
come on,
between us two, the fact that he hasn't signed it, right, speaks volumes. I mean, he doesn't have to say anything. We see what's going on in college football. We know Texas Tech got the guy they wanted, the assistant from Baylor. Clay Helton went to Georgia Southern. And the reason, and you guys know this, the reason why these programs, if they can hire a coach now, is because there's an early signing period in December 15th. So it's not only for recruits, it's a lot for the transfer portal too, in that's a recruiting phase too, that you can get kids in there for the spring semester, which is huge, right? If you can get them in for spring ball early. So a lot going on. He said, I read that Sonny said there wasn't distractions in the program. It can't help but be a distraction. Of course, he's going to say that, but you were 7-0. You were in a great spot. All of a sudden, now you've dropped 2 in a row. You don't control your own destiny, and your coach is rumored to go. Oh, by the way, it's only like 39 miles away. TCU. A lot of people don't know that from where SMU is and where he lives. It's 39 miles. So you eventually really don't even have to move your family, which is always a big thing for coaches and their families and their wives in their home. So a lot going on there. I think UCF's in a good position. But they're going to have to score more points this week. There's no doubt about it, because SMU, distractions aside, they have too many weapons there. They're going to score points this week. There's no doubt about it. And so you got to be ready.
You're right. By the way, you're a great travel agent. You know all the areas where everybody lives and all the houses.
Well,
there.
That's where the American Conference headquarters are.
That's true.
I've actually been to Dallas a bunch of times. Great city, great location. So I will say that.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that they might play Stone with Mordecai, because here at UCF, a hot topic's been that Joey Gatewood gets a number of reps there. At times it gets a package, if you will. And
yeah.
I think that's part of college football now, right? When you bring in these guys because of the transfer portal, you're pressured to play maybe some of these guys. Maybe if not like officially say, hey, if you come here, you're going to play, but you kind of feel like you got to play this kid to keep him happy a little bit and learn about the future, right?
Such an interesting dynamic because, obviously you guys have seen a ton more UCF football than I have, but it seems like when Joey Gatewood gets in there lately, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I really could use some help on this. It seems like it's a package where they want to use his feet kind of more running, right?
Yep.
And last week it was like, okay, Tulane was like, they were ready for it, right? So all of a sudden you bring Gatewood in, and I'm a big proponent, guys. If you ever watch my games, everyone talks about third down conversions and the staying ahead of the chains. You have to be positive on first down. And I don't care if it's 3 yards, but 2nd and 7 in the playbook is so much. And I know it's Captain Obvious, but people just don't realize it. 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6 is so much better than 2nd and 10, 2nd and 11, and 2nd and 12. And it seemed like when Gatewood came in the few times, they were tackles for losses. And then you bring Mikey Keene back in, and then the kids at 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13. I just think it's so hard to dig out of that hole. And we already talked about being a freshman quarterback. I think you can get away with a little more with Dylan Gabriel. But to your point, Eric, you have to find a way to play kids, get them reps, and keep them happy, especially in the quarterback position, because that's the position that's prevalent in transferring out. Listen, I'm an old school person. I think like it's gotten, we've coddled these kids in that like, oh, I'm not a starter. I'm just going to transfer because that's what my parents said I should do, or that's what Twitter said I should do. And the coaches don't know what the hell they're talking about. No, there's something to be said for fighting for your job and learning and coming off the bench and being a good backup and being ready and just fighting for your job. And so, we've done that as society. I mean, even us at ESPN, we have, and it's not just ESPN, but we have national high school rankings and they're on national TV. And so they feel, like entitled, right? When they get to these programs. And a lot of these kids don't know how to handle it when they don't win the starting job. So they immediately want to transfer instead of say, hey, I'm going to fight for it. Now, with all that said, the one position I do understand is quarterback. So, if you have a bona fide starter in front of you and you're a really good player where you're going to be a starter, I think even the coaches, although they would want to keep you, they understand that. And I've talked to a lot of coaches this year. And if that happens, obviously they would love to keep the kid because obviously you would like 2 bona fide quarterbacks, right? But they understand that, their backup, the kid that, I shouldn't say backup, the one that didn't win the job has the ability to start somewhere else. So as long as somewhere else doesn't come back to bite you in the butt, I think these coaches are really being honest with these kids, saying, hey, you have the ability to go play. And I understand that. And again, that quarterback's the one position where I get it.
Yeah. I'm so glad I wanted to go back to one point that you made about first downs, because I think you were so right about the key, last week. This is a UCF team that comes into this game, right now they're averaging 187 yards on the ground, really good balance this year so far. But the key to that, I think, has been the presence of Isaiah Bowser, who, they lost him after the Louisville game for a period of time. He finally came back. He hasn't quite looked 100%. And then he got nicked up in the Tulane game. And like you said, Tulane did it, to their credit, they did a great job against the run. They held UCF to just 48 yards net on the ground on 31 carries. Your impressions of, I feel like this is a much different UCF offense when Bowser is in there, as opposed to, between Gatewood. Yeah, we can talk about Gatewood and Keene till cows come home, but he to me is the straw that stirs the drink. No?
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. And just let's go back to that Louisville game. Holy cow. How destructive was that game for UCF?
They lost six of their top 8 guys in that game.
And they lose the game they should have won. On top, that's like the cherry on the top, right? If you're a UCF fan, you're just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But as we just talked about, they have fought through it. Okay. They're a bowl eligible team. They're going to go to a bowl. I mean, if they win out, which could easily happen, right? If they play the way UCF can play, they can win out. You win a bowl game, you got a 10-win season. And you look back and say, how the hell did that happen? Right. With everything they've been through. So that's why I say, if you're a UCF fan, don't be distraught, because Gus has done some things. But to get back, yes, to me, Bowser is the difference. Now, a lot of that is offensive line. I'm a former running back, and I will be the first to tell you, as a running back, you are only as good as your offensive line. So that offensive line needs to get a little nastiness in them too. They need to get after it. That's an attitude thing. Herb Hand's been around a long time, okay? He's coached a lot of places, and he's got that nastiness in him that you want from an offensive line coach. So I think they're going to get after him. But you're right, Bowser's the kind of back that just can make the difference. And the reason I love him is I wasn't a flashy back. He's not flashy, right? I tell people in running backs, get me the tough 4 yards. Get me 4, get me 4, get me 4. And that 4 turns into 40 because defenses don't want to tackle you when you run hard. Mm-hmm. A guy, you're getting 4. One guy misses his gap, you're out the backside. He may not be a speedster, so that's why 4 is not going to get you 80, but you'll take 40, and he can do that. Now, we'll see. And I know you guys know he's on the 2 deep, right? This week It came out, so let's hope he plays. You can play, and especially when you get late in the season, as a former running back, there is not a running back in the country that carries the ball a significant amount that isn't hurt. You play hurt. It's just that's just what happens. So you can play hurt, you can't play injured. So let's hope he's not injured. I don't think he is. I think he's going to be able to fight through it. And so, but I agree with you. He's the difference. The running game is the difference. And I will say, let me go to SMU. Memphis held them as well. They did not run the ball well. So you have all these great athletes on the outside. You got the leading passer. It all starts with the running game. You have to keep defenses balanced. And you don't have to be a dynamic running game, but you have to do enough to keep them balanced defensively where you can use your athletes on the outside. And really, when I look at it, is they get Jalen Robinson back, and I'm really excited to see him, right? Coach says he's healthier than he's been before that Louisville game. We know what Brandon Johnson's been doing, Ryan O'Keefe. So I'm excited to see them. And to me, they're very similar to UCF with what they have on the outside, what they can do with the running game. And then, again, Mikey, freshman quarterback, I'm not going to compare him to Tanner. But obviously if Dylan was in there, offensively, it would be pretty similar, different thought processes of what you do. And that's the other thing too. A lot of people don't realize Gus's offense. And I'm sure he said this during the season when someone's interviewed him. It's a run first offense. Yeah. Everyone thinks it's a spread where he runs the ball first. There's no doubt about it. And that's why someone like Bowser's, it's very important and critical for his offense.
Yeah. And Bowser, the other thing too is, and I know you appreciate this as a former running back, like he's got such good vision. I feel like that's probably his best thing. And when you have good vision, you can see holes before they develop.
Jeff, you're on the money, buddy. I think your illness has helped your football IQ, because I tell people all the time, you cannot teach vision.
Right.
Either you have it, thank the Lord, thank your parents, or you don't. And I see that each week calling games where you see these dynamic running backs and they have all this talent. And I'm like, where the hell was he looking? Like, what did he not see? It's crazy. You got vision, man. That is the number one thing. If I was going to build a running back and I'm going to start with something, give him vision. You're on the money.
Yeah. Cause he shows such good patience, and that can make your offensive line look good too. Eric, you had a question. Also go ahead.
Well, Rene, you made a great point earlier about UCF and first downs and falling into second and long and things like that. And I brought this stat up earlier prior to the show, and Mark Daniels, the radio voice of UCF, has brought this up on his radio show this week. UCF had 22 plays on first down against Tulane, netted 30 yards. Can't do it. That's long distance. And I'm curious, your thoughts on SMU's defense. Jim Leavitt is the defensive coordinator, obviously former USF head coach, so UCF fans know him very well. Not the most popular guy in UCF fan base circles there for obvious reasons. But what's your thoughts on him and this defense? What are we going to see from SMU's defense? Because I thought they gave them a chance to come back and steal that game from Memphis last week in that fourth quarter.
They did. So they used to play an even front. Jim gets there, they go an odd front, so 3 down. But they have been walking a guy up, playing more even. I talked to him about that. Here's the interesting thing. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'm going to go off my head. They held Memphis, I want to say, 8 8 for 22 or 8 for 23 on third down, which is good. They got off the field, but Memphis was 5 of 8 on fourth down against SMU. It's like one of those things Ryan Silverfield said, blanket, we're going for it. I know you guys have seen it. Some of it's analytics. Some of it's just like blanket. I'm going for it. A lot more teams are going for it on fourth down. It's in situations and places on the field we've never seen before, which I love. But they were 5 for 8 against them. And 2 of them, one was 4th and 11 and one was 4th and 12. And Memphis got it. So that had to be a backbreaker. So I can't wait to talk to Jim about that. They're pretty good. He's got some good guys. Shane Haley, I'm looking at my chart right here. 23, the middle linebacker is pretty good. Delano Robinson, another linebacker. They got a nickel, plays what's called their jack, Isaac Slade, Matatia. And you probably saw him. He jumped over the Houston.
That was amazing, by the way. That's an amazing
very
play.
Athletic. Trevor Denbo, their starting safety, he got nicked up, but I think he's going to be okay. They're an opportunistic defense. I mean, as I'm looking at their numbers, it's not like they lead the nation in anything. And ironically, as I look, they were really good at getting off the field on fourth down, and then of course Memphis just blew that up. So it's a decent defense. They don't do anything overwhelmingly great. But you're right. They did what they needed to do to get back in the game for that offense. And that's the thing. And I think UCF kind of went through this a few years ago when the offense was so good. And we're to a point, guys, in college football, if you're in the proper league, and this always held suit in the Big 12, which UCF's headed, that where if you have an offense that can score 45 points a game, you don't have to have a dominating defense, but what you do need to do is you have to have an opportunistic defense. And what's opportunistic? It means, okay, getting that big third down stop or fourth down stop, right? Getting the ball back for your offense or getting that takeaway at the right time to steal a possession. And when you can do that, as long as your offense is clicking on all cylinders, that's how you win those 45, 35 games, those 42, 38 games. But if your offense isn't clicking, well, then your defense needs to step up and be dominant, right? And so, that's where I think this defense was. It was opportunistic. SMU I'm talking about was opportunistic, was making some plays, but the offense was averaging, I don't have it, well over 40 points coming into the game last week. So, but you've seen what's happened. The offense hasn't really scored, and they've lost a couple games.
Yeah. All right, last question for you. Well, second to last question. What's the plot of this game if UCF is going to pull it off?
Yeah, so the ever early 11 a.m. local time game for UCF. So let's, get up nice and early. And I bet you Gus has them up early, preparing for that already, getting down there. SMU, when I talked to their offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, he said the last 2 weeks, really slow starts. And guess what? They were really slow against Memphis. So they're going to try to come out of the gates really early against UCF. There's no doubt about it. So I would think quick pace, taking some deep shots, trying to get those receivers early. So if UCF defensively can weather the storm early, right? It's a game where I think on the road, UCF can't go down like 14-0 early at the end of the first quarter. I think that'll be problematic for them. If they can hang in there, be tied, maybe have a lead at the end of one, and get the running game going with Bowser, as you talked about, I think they'll be in it in the fourth quarter, and it's a game they can win. So to me, as I look at this game, if you're a UCF fan, I think the first quarter is going to tell a lot.
And get some pressure on Tanner as well, because and I've argued with Jeff here off the air about this. I think Tanner is the best pure passer that UCF will see the entire year. Not maybe the better quarterback. I think Desmond Ritter's a better all-around quarterback when you include his legs and experience and the intangibles that he has. Malik Cunningham is a super talented kid at Louisville. But none of those two are as good of a pure passer, in my opinion, than Tanner Mordecai. Do you agree with that?
No, I do agree. And a matter of fact, in our production meeting, we talked about our open. And, I'm going to highlight Big Cat Bryant because of what you just said. This is a game where they have to get some pressure on him. And again, you don't have to sack him. It's preferable if you sack him if you're a UCF fan, but you have to move him off his spot, make him uncomfortable, get him some hits. But you're right. a guy like Mordecai, he stands in the pocket with a clean pocket. He's got too many weapons. The UCF secondary will not hold up. I mean, if you just can't. And one weapon we didn't talk about, who's his roommate who came there with him from Oklahoma, is Frank Calcaterra, who really kind of had a quiet game against Memphis. So that's a guy. Look for a matchup. You look for them to get a good matchup on UCF to see if they can get him going early as well. So yes, they have to get pressure on him early. They're going to try to score early and often. There's no doubt about it. And so it'll be interesting. But yes, pressure would be the key defensively.
All right. Rene Ingoglia, RENEINGOGLIA on Twitter. You can follow him there. He'll be calling the game on Saturday for UCF against SMU. All right, last thing before I can't let you go, Rene.
Yeah, go ahead.
Without asking you about your UMass Minutemen. What is the deal, man? How do we get? When are we going to see Rene Ingoglia Stadium be constructed here for the Minutemen and solve this program that is barely hanging on in FBS, which is a proud program when you were there, Rene.
How about this, guys? A lot of people don't know this. University of Massachusetts played their first football game in 1879. I believe it's the fourth oldest program in history. So you just don't, that just doesn't go away. Obviously, they fired their coach Walt Bell this week and their defensive coordinator. I can report I've had multiple conversations with the athletic director, Ryan Bamford, talking to him about stuff. And, everyone's trying to do the right thing, right? And so the next hire is going to be crucially important for the program. Like we just talked about earlier with some of the hires, I don't know his time frame. We didn't get into specifics like that, but a lot of ADs want to coach in place if they can, if feasible, in December, right?
Yeah.
To just get running. So the next coach is the most important thing. And then after that, you can't live as an independent. Okay. I mean, BYU could, Notre Dame can and does. Right. BYU could, and even BYU said, we're done. We're going to Big 12, right? Liberty's got more money than people realize. They could have probably did it. They said, no, we're going to go to Conference USA. So I am still holding out strong that they can get in Conference USA. So there was a decision today. I don't know how much you guys were on Twitter before we hopped on here. Middle Tennessee State is staying in Conference USA. Western Kentucky said they would not go to the MAC without Middle Tennessee.
Yep.
So now that'll leave them with 9 full members. I believe they would bring a 10th in. UMass has to go as a football only. It's no disrespect to Conference USA. You're not going to pull all your other sports out of the Atlantic 10. You're just not going to do it.
Yeah, no, the basketball's too strong.
And they're Olympic sports. It's a great conference for everything else. So if they can bring UMass over in a football only, which would give them 10 football members, I think that's a no-brainer. I think Ryan Bamford would do it in a heartbeat. Right now, UConn's kind of in that denial stage where they think they can stay as an independent. All you have to do is look an hour up the road to UMass, what they've been through. So two things to answer your question. One, make the right hire. And two, I think get in a conference. It's just, it's fine. You can play those money games. They played 3 ACC teams this year on the road. You just can't do it. They go to Texas A&M next year. I think Texas A&M's giving them like $2.1 million for that one game.
Gosh, wow.
But they're playing a bunch of MAC teams and some teams that will be in Conference USA. So a lot better grouping for them. So I am. It's hurt. It's actually hurt as an alum to see what's happened up there. It's a proud tradition. It really is. So that we'll get it back. We'll get it back, Jeff. And I do have to say too, 2021, right? Crazy year. I will be calling as you said, the UCF-SMU game, which kicks off 12 o'clock Eastern time in Dallas. I will be calling that game from Orlando. So how's that for irony?
Hey.
Right? At my home studio where I'm sitting in right now. So it's crazy times, guys. Crazy times.
Wild, man. Well, we will hear you on ESPNU at noon Eastern, along with John Triffin. You won't be at Gerald Ford Stadium. You will be in your home in Orlando.
Through your TV, I'll be right here with.
We're just glad to hear your voice.
My lovely backdrop behind me. There you go, my ESPN backdrop.
Perfect.
There's all my. I'll give you guys.
We've all gotten used to doing broadcasts from our house.
Reedy, whatever you got to do to get that, if it scores you a larger television in the office, it's worth it. I mean,
well, the good news is, I'm doing this game from home. I got Maction Tuesday, so I'll be traveling Tuesday from Maction. And then
you better stay warmed up for Maction. We've had some good Tuesday night
and I don't know where
year.
I'm going to be. I had a real good one a couple of weeks ago. I had that Eastern Michigan Toledo game, which was dynamite. I'll find out tomorrow where I'll be Tuesday, and then I'll be flying to Bristol to the home on Friday. I'll be calling my Saturday game next week, which I don't know where, from the Bristol studio, because then I have the FCS selection show on Sunday, the 21st. So I'm jam-packed the next.
You're a busy man. You're busy.
I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to roll. It's a great time of the year.
Happy Thanksgiving. Jeez, holy smokes.
Yeah. Same to you guys.
Rene Ingoglia. We'll see you on ESPN. You brother. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was going to say, hey, great work, too. You were part of the American Conference Media Days with Chris Button. You guys did a tremendous job kind of setting us up for the American Conference season, meeting all the coaches. I know you had a blast doing that. Right? What was that like? And kind of, does anything surprise you from this league this year?
Yeah, I think it's underachieved. I mean, I'll be honest with you. And I think let's get off there as someone tries to call me. And while we have a minute, let's stay on this for a second. That has hurt Cincinnati.
I agree.
There's no doubt in my mind, and you can just tell what the committee's done. I mean, Houston keeps winning, right? Houston's still not in the top 25. I mean, when that first ranking came out, I was shocked that SMU and Houston weren't in the top back end, but they weren't. But again, if you look at the conference from top to bottom, it has not had the success that it normally has. And we can point it right what we're talking about, UCF, Memphis, right? Two right there that stick out.
Tulane, you mentioned earlier, it's underachieved.
Tulane, the last couple of years, has been that 500 team. And how about Navy, guys?
Yep.
Where the hell is Navy?
Agreed.
So that has hurt Cincinnati. But with that said, if they just win out, I mean, with what's going on in front of them, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. But yes, to get back to your initial question, the American has underachieved, and it's
hard. It's so hard for that because it's not Cincinnati's fault that Dylan Gabriel got hurt, right? It's not Cincinnati's fault that Navy had the bottom drop out of them last year from COVID, and they're still kind of picking up the pieces from that.
And here's the amazing thing, and I agree with Luke Fickell. I like Luke Fickell. It's hard to win. It is. A win's a win. I get it. Yeah. But when you're like fifth or sixth in the nation and you have one score games against teams in your conference with one win, I mean, that's like red light, and I'm not for running it up or whatever, but that's what people in the nation expect. And the crazy thing is they haven't played great the last 3 weeks, right? They've gotten wins and they've moved up in the rankings.
They're number 5.
Correct.
They're right there.
If you're a Cincinnati fan, you're like, okay, we still can do what we need to do. And listen, they're going to get SMU, who's going to have a winning record. Obviously, the UCF fans hope it's a less winning record when they get to them, but it's still a winning record. And they're going to get Houston. It looks like they're going to get Houston. So they're going to have a chance to get a couple big wins here. But you guys seen them already. And this was my surprise team this year. And they're doing exactly what I thought. And UCF almost got nicked by them as ECU. So in East Carolina, they hate Cincinnati. There was some, no love lost there last year. And that's a team that just last game of the year, if you're Cincinnati, you're thinking about the American Conference Championship. Do not overlook them. I am a huge Mike Houston fan. I think this is his third year. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. So that's one of the teams in the conference. I think I don't want to say he's overachieved. He's done what I thought they would do in his third year. So yeah, it's interesting. But to get back to you, Eric, too, and I know UCF fans don't care because they're going to the Big 12. And let me say this about UCF fans, because I'm in tune in Twitter. I may not always answer people or get in because I'm not a Twitter mob person, but I do listen. I know what everyone says. I know what everyone's opinion is. I was kind of taken aback by a lot of the UCF fans attacking Mike Oresco and the American after they got the Big 12 invite. Guys, I got news for you. If it wasn't for the American and what the conference did for you, you wouldn't be in the Big 12. Now, people will say, oh, it's what UCF did for the American. It's a give and take, guys. They work together. So it's not UCF, it's Cincinnati and Houston. Mike Oresco did a phenomenal job. At the end of the day, guys, if you don't have the autonomous 5 designation next to your conference, and we know there's only 5 of them, and it's also called Power 5, but the true word is autonomous 5. If you don't have that, you're out of luck. And Mike Oresco knows that. And that's why they tried so hard to make some moves early, to keep people in. And they just couldn't do it because you just can't compete if you don't have the autonomous 5. And he understands that. And so I just think it's a little disingenuous to kind of pound on the American as you're leaving. I just don't think that's the right thing to do.
Oh, listen, you're talking to 2 people who have a pretty strong reputation as 2 of the American Athletic Conference apologists among UCF Twitter. You don't have to tell us, right? Because I've said it before. It's like, Oresco's dealing with a business model that is. I think that one of the things that actually goes back to is a lot of UCF fans are upset at him because they didn't feel like he defended the national championship claim in 2017 as strong as he could. But my case was, and this is true. He was in the middle of negotiating a $1 billion television contract with ESPN, which at the time was, he's not going to crap on ESPN's, premier product, which is college football play, because up until recently, we didn't know that Disney could get a Super Bowl. ABC hasn't aired a Super Bowl. So that's ESPN's primary product. He's not going to do anything to jeopardize that relationship. So of course he kind of had to bite his tongue. And then once the dotted line was signed, yes, he's come out and he's come out, defended Memphis. He's come out, defended Cincinnati, come out, defended UCF in retrospect. I'm like, guys, this is a business.
At the end of the day, he's got to put money in the pockets of these universities. And that's what he's doing with these deals. And Jeff, you're on the money. And I'll say this while we back up. That 2017 UCF team I thought was just fantastic. And they got screwed. But and here's the we'll talk about Cincinnati. If you're a Cincinnati fan, you should thank that 2017 UCF team, because that started everything in motion, right? I mean,
that paved the way.
So they beat Auburn. Gus Malzahn coached Auburn team in the Peach Bowl, a team that beat Alabama that year, right? They go undefeated. 2018. What was their record? What was their preseason ranking after that performance in 2017 and 2018? It was like 18.
2018, they were like 18th or 20th. I can't remember exactly. Let me look it up.
So just no respect, not only for UCF, but for the American, large part because of UCF. The fight the last 3 or 4 years has gotten the American more national respect. Now, I will say I don't think the American still gets enough national respect. Of course, they haven't helped themselves out this year as a conference top to bottom, but the fact that Cincinnati started as high as they did this year, it really is a testament to what the American and UCF did, a few years ago. There's no doubt in my mind.
And Rene, 2018 preseason poll in the AP, UCF was 21, coming off of a 13-0 season, 23rd in the coaches. And
then Cincinnati, right, has a 1-loss season. They lose in the Peach Bowl. Right. And as opposed to winning it, they lose in it. And I think their preseason ranking was 8 or 10, right? I believe
8th in the Associated Press and 10th in the coaches.
Yeah. And listen, I'm rooting for Cincinnati. I like the American Athletic Conference. It's a good conference. And, with everything I just said, too, obviously 100% agree. UCF has to go to the Big 12. And listen, guys, I was beating that drum years ago that the Big 12 should have taken UCF before all this happened. But a little slow to the table. Their hand got pushed by Texas and Oklahoma like everyone else did. But it's going to be a really good conference for UCF down the road. I'm excited for them and the fan base with that said. So, yeah.
Cool stuff. Rene, let's do this again some point. What
Anytime, fellas. Listen, Jeff, I want to see you up and jogging, though, next time when I do it, okay? No more bed stuff. It's a little awkward, man.
Hey, soon as I get these 3 herniated discs fixed, you better believe that I'm going to be back up and at it, man.
Well, I didn't want to tell the viewers, and what's the truth? Like, didn't Eric elbow you out of the way going to the buffet at halftime up in UCF? Like, he gave you a shot and you tumbled. That's not. Oh, that's what Mark Daniels said. That's not true.
No. I messed up these discs because I working camera for 6 years
There we go,
earlier
the
on
cam
in my
TV.
career, and just trying to make Eric look good. That's a lot
hard.
of heavy lifting.
That's a very difficult thing.
Well, there you go. And now you're paying the price. But just like a gladiator in the ring. All right, get the surgery, get back in there. You'll be all good. So hopefully, guys, next year, things get back to a little, I don't want to say normal because they're pretty much back to normal, this whole at-home thing. Hopefully I am on the road full-time next year and I come to the bounce house. I can see you guys in person.
Drive over and hang out, man.
Sounds like a deal.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think I think I'm actually going to come to the USF game that Friday. So my daughter plays college soccer at Lynn University. It's a Division II school in Boca.
Yep.
And she's got some international teammates that have never been to a football game. So they're going to come up for Thanksgiving. So I think I believe I have a Saturday game. So that one of the perks of calling from home, no travel, right? So I think I'll have a Saturday game. So I think I'll be able to shoot over there for the big war on I-4. So you never know. Maybe I'll snag a pass and come up in the press box and say,
cool
hi to you
stuff.
guys.
Come on by. Come on down. I'll see you.
You'll see Jeff look like Hugh Freeze coaching.
There you go. Yeah.
Hugh Freeze.
All right, Rene Ingoglia, thank you so much
Enjoy
for joining us. We'll see you on Twitter. Hey, enjoy the show. Have a good show on Saturday. We'll see you then.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
All right, stick around. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll be back after this.
They're very, very talented. That quarterback, wow, he's got the wow factor. When you watch him on film, he can make all the throws. He understands protections. He gets them in and out of good, plays. You got to keep a guy off balance. I mean, that's the only way you can offense like this. They got really talented receivers. They got a very talented tight end, and their running back's good too. So I mean, I think overall, there's a reason they're top 10. And I think he leads every category, in our league, every passing category. So it's a big challenge for our defense. Something they're looking forward to. We'll need to play well.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you, joining us real quick to kind of wrap up on football because what an interview we just had with Rene Ingoglia. Stat boy Drew Gluchov joins us here, who is no chopped liver himself, I must say. But
I happen to like chopped liver, though, but that comes with growing up.
Let's not talk about that.
It happens to be with growing up in Jewish delis in East Cleveland. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. I own it.
Listen, excellent pastrami, right?
Hey, corned beef is where it's at, man.
It's where it's at. But the liver, no thank you. I'm not a fan of eating internal organs.
I hate liver.
I would like to stop talking about liver right now. Okay,
I can make it so much worse. Okay,
let's talk instead of liver, let's talk about the heart that this UCF team is going to have to show to beat SMU real quick. And you and Kyle Nash are going to be coming on night shift right after the conclusion of the game. But, just like Rene talked about, this is there's an opportunity here, isn't there, Drew?
There absolutely is. And I'm trying to think of the number of different deli jokes I can make. The heart of the team is really what's been keeping them going because, the team is dealt with an absurd amount of injuries. Now, Coach Malzahn injured with a cracked tibia. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're actually on the field or not. You're liable to get injured if you're in UCF football this year. However, his tongue is not at issue here. He's still going to be on the field coaching. He's still going to be doing his thing. But UCF's in a bit of a pickle. They have to play against an SMU team that is angry. They dropped. They were the big team going up against Cincinnati, and they have tanked the last couple weeks, and it's really put a damper in their season. And the last thing they want is another loss. Going in, and this is for really the sole spot, third place in the league right now. UCF has it. They played an extra game. That's what's on the line here, because UCF closes with UConn and South Florida. The expectations are going to win those games. They win this, they've got a chance for a 10-win season. There's a lot on the line here for UCF.
Yep.
And SMU knows there's a lot on the line for them too. This is going to impact where they go for bowl games. You know, there's been a lot of wild predictions, and Eric and I are going to be coming out with ours soon. I'm still standing by UCF going to the Military Bowl. That was my belief before the season ever started, and it's my belief today. Now, granted, I thought SMU was going to be the number 2, not Houston, but you know, things kind of played out a little bit funny like that. That's why we play the game.
That's why we play the game. All right, so give us the lowdown on Saturday. You've got well, I wanted to but you guys are doing night shift, you and Kyle, right? You guys are getting the band back together.
We're getting the band back together. I mean, it's been years since we've done a show together, but we've done shows together for years. So it's about time. But this is going to be a fun one. You know, starts at 11 o'clock locally, 12 o'clock here, ESPNU as the last segment, throughout there a couple of times. And this is an SMU team that can throw the ball and score, and they've been slow to get going. They're going to have to try to change that. And UCF's best chance of winning is keep the game close. You know, East Carolina, Tulane, they kept the games close, and they were able to find a way to win.
By the way, I looked at the latest number from OddsShark. SMU is favored by 7. 72% of the money is on UCF plus the 7.
There's reason why. The expectation is Jalen Robinson is going to be back playing. He's been practicing the last couple weeks, and while he did warm up this past Saturday,
but didn't play.
Yeah, but didn't play. He was available for emergency use, but they never needed him. And you know what? It's better off that way. And the thing is, you want to incrementally bring him back in. Mikey Keene, freshman, he's going to go with the guys that he feels the most comfortable with. He's developed the best rapport with Brandon Johnson, with Ryan O'Keefe. Those have been his go-to guys. Now, Alec Holler's really become a really focal point of this offense as that big option. We haven't seen a tight end become a valuable guy in the offense since Jordan Akins was around. But it's going to take time for a different dynamic to develop. Obviously, this is all, a temporary thing because the expectation is that Dylan Gabriel's going to come back at some point this year. I mean, he's been out there practicing, getting ready. And as we know from experience with injuries, you can't rush them because bad things happen. We see that with Dante Culpepper in the NFL. You don't want to rush bad injuries. And two, UCF's done okay. I mean, you could have said, the potential for a 10-win season without Dylan for most of it, that would have been insane. If you said that in the beginning of the year, but this is reality. UCF is still on pace for a potential 10-win season with a true freshman at quarterback, with a starting running back that's missed a number of games because of injuries. Your top wide receivers out, your top defensive linemen's out. You lost one of your main linebackers to the transfer portal. There's hits all over the place, and they're still coming. And that comes back to
we are literally MacGyvering a 10-win season right now.
A duct tape and chewing gum, man. Throwing a paper clip in there. Boy, you've got yourself one heck of a winning formula.
Oh, man. All right, Drew. Well, I know the insight is brief, but thanks for bringing it in because, now promo night shift, because we're going all in on this thing throughout the month of November, right? We've got you and Kyle running the show. It's not just up on YouTube. It's also up on Twitter. It's up on Facebook, and we're throwing it in our podcast feed as well. So give us the sell.
Yeah, not only that, but Kyle's been working the phones really hard, bringing in. It looks like Aaron Evans is supposed to be joining us, former offensive lineman and a good friend of Kyle's.
Friend of the pod.
He's jumping right in. And I think it'd be really cool because, we've had Trey on multiple times, defensive guy. Now we have an offensive guy, give a very different perspective. I think it'd be a great listen.
Trey would appreciate this, having played on the same team in 2017 as Aaron. Is like, listen, the defense has been on the field a little too much.
Dude, oh man, that couldn't probably say that any better. Give the defense a break. Slow down a little bit.
Trey, to his credit, has been bending but not breaking. But we need to the offense needs to hang on to the ball a little bit here.
I can't argue that. Both Kyle and I did play offensive line, when we were younger. He did semi-pro ball. I played in high school before my arms fell apart and had to go into the knife and stop growing. But, we all think like linemen. That's one reason why Kyle and I used to always play pickup football and would want to play the line, because that's just what we do. But it'll be really cool to hear, from the perspective of a player who did play on the FBS level and was able to excel and was one of the best in recent years at UCF, and Aaron Evans. So tune in. You won't be disappointed. It'll be a lot of fun. And hopefully it'll be after an SMU win, or a win against SMU.
I was going to say, easy there. Whoa.
Yeah, man, I almost slipped on that one. Oh, no. I'm sorry.
Right,
I'm terrible.
You want to hang around and talk about Olympic sports? We got plenty of time. Let's go ahead and dive in on
Let's just dive right in. Let's do this.
All right. So let's talk about the other football real quick. UCF men's soccer, they have got a hill to climb. They lost. They had the lead against Tulsa. Number 5 Tulsa.
Was ranked number 2 in this polls this week, by the way.
Yeah, and Tulsa scored 2 second-half goals to beat them 2-1. If UCF wins that game, it's a totally different complexion to the season. But as of right now, your RPI has UCF all the way down to 60. They could have, because they're 8-7 overall. What a weird season. They could have swept Tulsa. But now they're 8-7. The RPI is 60. Remember, 48 teams get into the NCAA tournament. 60 is just not going to do it. So they got to play themselves in. They're playing the conference tournament is being played at Tulsa. The first round, they just changed the times too, Eric. UCF and Memphis. Now, get this. Memphis knocked off SMU on the last night of the season. So your semifinals on today, Wednesday, November 10th, look like this. Men's soccer, UCF, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, ESPN Plus against number 3 seed Memphis. UCF is the number 2 seed. Okay. Tulsa plays at 8:30. They're the 1 seed against 4 seed SMU. That's a very winnable game for SMU, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to last year when UCF was the 1 seed and played SMU in the semis.
Right.
So
in what was one of the most amazing soccer games you'll ever see.
It's real simple. Tulsa's going to be in the NCAA tournament regardless. This is a 1-bid league unless somebody other than Tulsa wins the league. UCF has to win the tournament to have a shot to get back to the NCAA tournament. The problem is they're just too inconsistent. This is not a team that's done a good job coming from behind. It seems when they fall behind a goal or two, it kind of snowballs. We've seen that. We saw that against Memphis earlier this year when Memphis beat them. So they got to get off to a good start, and you hope their psyche is good, because it seems like when things go south, it really goes south. And, it's been a tough finish, a disappointing finish to the season for them, kind of like the women, where they were kind of in position, they were in good shape, and then they just kind of hit the blocks here, hit the road, if you will, here, and struggled. So they got to win the tournament. Hopefully they regroup. If not, their season's going to come to an end.
Well, It all becomes a battle of momentum. You're talking about a team that's coming off 3 straight losses. That's hard to turn around. But granted, they looked pretty good against Tulsa, but still, that's hard to get. You got to get over that block. That becomes a mental thing. It starts dogging you. You lose against USF to get this started, and it goes downhill.
Yeah.
And it only can play games with you, especially when your back's against the wall. Being 60th in the RPI, the women's was 62. They didn't get in.
Yeah,
it's basically win or go home. And even SMU at 46, there's no guarantee they get in with that kind of RPI.
No, I think it's a 1-bid league unless somebody beats Tulsa to win the conference tournament. Somebody else wins the conference tournament. Otherwise, it's a 1-bid league.
And UCF
SMU, by the way, 46 RPI. So yeah,
they can win.
I mean, they beat him at UCF, and I should have beat him at Tulsa.
It's the Tulsa curse.
But you mentioned both men and women struggled at the end. The women lost at Cincinnati. They were in. They had a 38 RPI going into that match. They lose. Now they got to go to Memphis. They get knocked out in the opening round of the conference tournament, and they're out. They're out of the postseason altogether. We're seeing the same thing with the men. It's a very eerily similar finish for both the women and the men, and that's just the way it is this year. I know some people are upset about it, but that's kind of how this has worked out. So it's been a tough finish for soccer.
And by the way, can we please chill it with the hot seat talk, please?
There's
Everybody
no
out
hot
there.
seat going on.
Here's the thing.
There's no hot seat going on.
Here's the thing people got to understand. You can be disappointed in a season or in a team, but not be on the hot seat. I think people have to realize that. I mean, otherwise the Cleveland Browns would be firing coaches every 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, they did fire 2 within a single season.
Well, what has that done? Yeah, I mean, give me a break. So, look, yes, I get it. People are disappointed with the soccer finish and women's soccer in particular with the tradition. I get it. But no, there's no hot seat. Stop. We got to stop putting coaches in hot seats every 5 minutes when they drop a game.
Well,
right?
I think
especially coaches that in Olympic sports graduate their students, okay, are competing in the conference, and oftentimes in soccer, you guys know how this is. One bad bounce, one way or the other, and you're going from conference champions to in the outhouse, right? There's the margin of error in soccer is so much thinner than arguably any other sport. And plus, every coach at UCF deserves to have an entire Big 12 recruiting cycle. Every single one. That's why Terry Mohajir was passing out contract extensions.
Well, that's the most important part. It really doesn't matter what anybody thinks. What does Terry Mohajir think? He's giving Coach Sahadak an extension. He's giving Coach Calabrese an extension. He's giving other coaches an extension. That's their answer. That's why you're not in the hot seat. If you have a long-term deal in Olympic sports, you're going to coach out through your contract. That's the difference. 90% of coaches that in the Olympic sports coach throughout their contract. This ain't football where you're firing a guy after 2 years. It doesn't work that way. So unless you want to be a heavy booster, it ain't going to happen. Anyway,
not only that, but you then create a really bad expectation. You know, who wants to work for you if that's how you show the loyalty? You know, I understand, you know, season didn't quite go the way you wanted, but, you know, these administrators know that things swing pretty quickly. And when you're competing with a lot of other schools, things can change. And when you're at that line, like UCF women's was one of those bubble teams that just fell off, it's very unforgiving, but it's a very thin line. And
it's okay to be disappointed. It's fair to be critical of certain things. That's fine. But, you know, look, Don Shula didn't make the playoffs from 1986 to 1989. I survived, you know, they kept, I don't think that happened. So that's my only thing. But thank you for caring, though. That's good. I want more people to care. Give me more Olympic sports. I'm okay with it.
We want people to care. But we also need some reason in the house.
So just go after Jeff. I'm good. You guys could. You know what? Just go after Jeff. Keep doing.
That's why I've created the new.
Drew and I are good
on Twitter. So
we're good.
All right. Let's. All right.
Volleyball.
I want to talk about volleyball.
Yeah.
They just continue to roll. 9 straight wins now. Although as Bryson Turner pointed out in the nightcap, they did lose their first set since October the 10th.
Yeah, fell down 2 sets to Cincinnati.
Came back and I don't know what happened in those first 2 sets, man. But they came back. They defeat Cincinnati in 5. 25. By the way, dominated in the third and fourth. 25-15, 25-13 before just taking care of business in the 5th. 20 and then picked up their 20th win of the season. 12 of them sweeps against the ECU Pirates. McKenna Melville just continues to dominate. We are officially on McKenna watch as far as we're concerned because she may be getting to 2,000 kills by the end of the year. She had 11 more and 18 digs plus 2 aces against ECU, and this UCF volleyball team just continues to roll. Look at the RPI, Eric. They are firmly ensconced in the top 20 now. They are right at number 20 at 20-6, and with no tournament to play games with them now. All they got to do is just keep winning. They're 2 games up in the standings on Houston, who's 2 games up on 3 other teams, but 13-1 in the conference. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we need. You know what? Do either of you guys know how to calculate a magic number? I gotta go calculate this anyway. Eric,
I don't know about that, but I can tell you. I mean, the bigger number that I'm more concerned with, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna win the league. It's a matter of when, not if. The bigger thing is the RPI you mentioned. They're 20. Miami is 16, Florida State 17, Florida's 23. Hello. Everybody's complaining about being our football state being terrible this year. How about we're a volleyball state? I mean, that's kind of crazy, but we're a volleyball state. I mean, I'm not even including Florida Gulf Coast, who's in the 40s in RPI. That's big. And I think that Cincinnati wins because one of those teams is going to host. Let's be real. Florida, Florida State, Miami, one of those three is probably going to host because they're going to have a better, tougher schedule down the stretch. So they're going to get more resume wins than UCF is in the American. So UCF's probably going to go to one of those places unless they win out and get some help. Then UCF maybe backdoors and hosts. That is what we're following here in the next month because I think these teams are going to play each other in the NCAA tournament, and that's what this team is playing for. They're playing for December. They're playing to make a deep run. I think those players are looking to kind of avenge the spring tournament, if you will. So I think that's where we're at with this team. And I think that's why they fell behind Cincinnati. I think they kind of didn't come out ready to go. Cincinnati kind of threw everything at them. And I think UCF kind of flipped the switch. That being said, once you get to December, that switch you got to be careful with. So I would hopefully not see that too more often. But that's something to follow in the next few weeks with this team is can they get in a position to host? And if not, where are they going? Because that's going to be very important.
Yeah. Again, the whole thing about what do they do? It's something. There's an analogy to be made here. Like I hearing people talk about like postseason disappointment when it comes to UCF sports is like getting a lecture on morality from, and I'm a recovering Catholic. It's like getting a lecture on morality from somebody who attends church twice a year on Easter and Christmas. Like, I really don't want to hear it. Like, you don't follow the sport. You don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, boy. Here we go, Joe. He's fired.
You don't know what you're talking about. All right? Leave it to the people like the three of us who do know what we're talking about.
I want people to be interested and invested.
I'm not get that. I'm fine. Interested. I like interest. I love investment. Okay?
But don't call for jobs when, when there's
don't call for people's jobs based on your standards, which are based on not knowing what the sport's about.
I'd like to point out that Purdue made their first tournament in women since 2009. And what was it? Was it Rutgers who made it to their second tournament ever? No, it wasn't. It wasn't Rutgers. Shoot, I don't remember who it was now. But there was another school that made it for the second time ever. I mean, yeah, I understand UCF has a very rich NCAA women's soccer history, being one of the pioneering schools with North Carolina. But, things come, things go.
Well,
and Amanda Cromwell's not coming back. This is our reality.
Yeah, I mean, she's a Hall of Fame coach for a reason, a national champion coach at UCLA. It's doing quite well. Like, here's the thing. I think it's a good thing that people have expectations for all these UCF sports. It tells you that the programs have risen, like volleyball, the high expectations. We have a generational player.
The expectations have to be within reason.
Why is that not reasonable, though, for them to advance in volleyball, though? How is that not reasonable?
Eric, remember, this is a 3-bid league. This was not a pushover women's soccer.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you on soccer. No, I'm not talking about soccer. Yeah. But I understand.
It's not a pushover league.
It's not. I agree.
Called out.
I agree. Soccer, yes, the goals are to make the tournament. No one's more disappointed than the coaches and the players. I think people have this idea like they don't care. Like, no, they care. They're just, trust me, they're more ticked off than we are, than you are. Everybody is. I think it's a compliment that there are expectations. Yeah, I think volleyball should have expectations to advance in the NCAAs. That's their own expectations. They've been to the second round. They want to be that first team to get to the Sweet 16. Shoot high. I don't have a problem with that. I think every team at UCF has high expectations. The only one that I think has to be very careful is men's basketball, because I feel like what I don't want is 3 months from now, if this men's basketball team is kind of like a few games over 500 or in fifth place, people are going to be, think it's a disastrous season when it's not.
Oh my God, don't even start.
But that's my point. But I understand why people think volleyball. Look, volleyball has dominated this league. No question about it. But the question is,
they won 68 of their last 72 against American Athletic Conference opponents.
So now the question is, can they get deep run in the NCAAs? Can they do what Cincinnati did with Jordan Thompson, get to a Sweet 16? They have a generational player. Take advantage of this. That's all I think.
The way,
so I will defend fans on that. I will defend them on that.
One of the dampers on volleyball is just the strength of the league or lack thereof.
Correct.
It's not a strong league. It's going to be a one-bid league.
That, and also how the NCAA will continually screw UCF.
But you told me but you told me the playoffs are great in the other sports. I mean, they're not flawed at all.
But I mean, that's just the truth. And it's always one of the head-scratching things. You look at the coaches top 25, and UCF doesn't even get a single vote.
Yeah, well, don't even get started on polls.
Florida
I mean,
State
volleyball polls.
And Florida are all with votes. Florida being ranked in the top 25.
Mary Wise, baby. Mary Wise. The brand matters, baby.
UCF at 20th in the RPI, and they don't even sniff a single vote in the polls. I mean, it just shows the lack of strength of the league, but
it also shows that every sport's just like football. It's all about the brand. Yeah.
Well, it's not about the brand. It's the fact that if you're not good, you know, you need the rest of the league to help you.
And that's why they're moving to
this on your own.
And that's one of the reasons why they're moving to the Big 12, as well as the Big Check. But you're moving to the Big 12 to avoid that issue.
By the way, we want to talk about
no matter where you go.
By the way, we want to talk about generational players. McKenna Melville, 1,841 kills.
Yeah.
She's 91 shy of number 2 all time at UCF. She's 310 shy of number 1 all time at UCF. And get this, 640 shy of NCAA Division I all time top 10. She should get that next year, barring anything going wrong. By the way, and you talk about generational players, as you mentioned, Jordan Thompson at Cincinnati,
Olympian,
right, Eric?
Jordan Thompson now, yes, gold medalist,
arguably the MVP of Team USA in the Olympics. How long did it take her to get out of the first round of the NCAA tournament?
It was her senior year. Actually, no, I take that back. They got twice. They went to the second round. Her sophomore
got out of the first weekend.
Yeah, her senior year. This is McKenna's. Technically, this is McKenna's senior year too.
Well, she's got one more year to go.
Well, because of COVID.
So,
but that's why the expectations are high. But again, I want to emphasize, it doesn't mean you can be disappointed and still have a great year. I think people somehow we have lost.
And
this
it also
language.
doesn't mean that fans need to start calling for coaches' heads. I think that's what you're
saying.
No,
but I think it's good they care about the sports. I'm glad they care.
There's a difference between the two. I like the fact that they care too. But when you start calling for coaches' heads,
they call that for every sport. I mean, good Lord. I mean, how many times has Drew been calling for Browns coaches over the years? Probably every
not that many, actually.
Listen, the Cleveland Browns is totally justified, but this is ridiculous. If you don't know what if you're
well, my point on this is this: the coaches that got contracted.
Your opinion, listen, if you form, I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt, but I want to say if you form your opinion on certain sports, on Olympic sports in UCF, based on the one time you watch them, which is when they're in the NCAA tournament, and that's when you determine whether or not UCF should keep a coach or not, you don't know what you're talking about. So shut up.
That's Jeff Sharon. Tweet at him. Drew and I
over there.
Yeah, I know. This is a fiery show, man.
This has been a very fiery. I'm in pain. Everything makes
me definitely.
Grumpy.
I think he's mad because I compared him to Hugh Freeze in the last
medicine's wearing off.
That's what it is.
And it's because Hugh Freeze coaches at Liberty. We know how he feels about that school.
That's right. Conference USA's member, Liberty now, folks.
All right. Yeah. Congratulations. Good luck with that. Men's tennis, by the way, had a couple of Trey Hildebrand and Bogdan Pavel were out in California for the ITA Fall Nationals. They got to the round of 16, so job well done. Like I said, that's the U.S. Open of college tennis if Wimbledon's the NCAA tournament. So congrats to them. And also congrats to Johnny Travell, who the native Canadian. Finished in third place at the Spirit International Golf Championship, which is another which is not an NCAA event, but he'll be back, again for 2022. So for UCF, that you talk about expectations. I think expectations.
Oh, they're going to be high expectations there. By the way, check out Nightcap. Bryson Turner's not with us. In fact, Drew is filling in. He's playing the Bryson role very well, decently. I wouldn't say well, but decently.
I'm spotting in kind of like Johnny Richardson spelling Isaiah Bowser.
There you go. Ooh, good comparison.
Yeah, you're grabbing the ball and just running right smack into the line instead of using your vision.
Correct. That's how I roll. Use your blockers. Just
That's true.
Use them the right way, right?
Exactly. So Bryson, though, will be covering volleyball on Saturday and then the Black and Gold series in baseball. And then on our next episode next week, we will give you an in-depth breakdown of UCF baseball. Bryson's going to give us what he's learned. He's been out there. He's watched them play over the last couple of weeks. So we'll get an idea what to expect from baseball in 22. And we'll do a little softball as baseball and softball wrap up. By the way, shout out to softball. Signing day in a lot of sports today. Soccer, other sports, softball being one of them. Number 25 recruiting class in the country, according to X Ratings. Second year in a row in the top 25 class. So there you go. How about that? Recruiting.
Volleyball, by the way, starts a 4-match home streak right now. Thursday, 7 p.m. against Memphis. They got SMU on Saturday at noon. And then Wednesday, 7 p.m., November 17th, War on I-4, UCF against South Florida at the venue, followed by Friday, November 19th against Temple. And that'll be senior day, that Friday, 7 p.m. match for UCF against Temple. So lots to talk about with volleyball as they play their final 4 matches of the season at home at 20-6. They could get to 24-6 and 17-1 in the conference. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Eric, if they win out in conference, they could clinch. There's a possibility they could clinch the conference championship if UCF wins all 4 and then Houston loses once. They could clinch the conference championship at home on Friday the 19th.
We would prefer that for very selfish reasons. Me and Bryson, we talked about that. So we have other things we're working on the volleyball side.
Yeah, here's Houston's situation. They've got ECU Friday, Cincinnati Sunday at home. That's a losable match for them. And then at Memphis, at SMU, 19th and 21st. So keep an eye on Houston and keep an eye on UCF with this four match homestand coming up. All right. That'll do it for us for today here on the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Basketball coming at you Wednesday night. I'm going to try and edit this thing, get it up as quickly as possible. And then, I don't know, maybe remedicate myself so I'm in a better mood to do PA
Seriously,
tonight.
Holy smokes.
This guy's grumpy. Jeez.
Seriously.
I'm unhappy.
Get off my lawn.
I know. By the way, huge thanks to Rene Ingoglia for joining us for an amazing football segment. You can follow Rene at ReneIngoglia on Twitter.
That was fun to listen to.
God, he was so good. We need to have him. I just want to talk to Rene like every day. Like he can like how do you not want to talk football with that guy? Thanks again to Drew, you for popping in. Statboy Drew on Twitter. Thanks to Eric, of course, Eric Lopez Elo. Make sure you follow. Also, you can follow Kyle Nash at the SOTG for Student of the Game on Twitter. And also it's Bryson Turner to follow Bryson Turner on Twitter for all the latest on UCF sports. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. If you already subscribed, leave us a rating. Tell us how we're doing. Leave us a comment. We always appreciate it as well. Don't forget, Night Shift immediately following UCF and SMU. Drew and Kyle will be coming at you, hope with Aaron Evans to break down UCF's game against SMU. Hopefully, it's a positive result. So, for Eric and Drew, I'm Jeff saying thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Enjoy the weekend.